Hi, and welcome back to the Sounds Like Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Deborah Henne, and I'm here with Jeff Mootz. Jeff encountered the love of Jesus in a significant experience at the age of 20 and has been pursuing intimacy with him for the last 20 years. He has been in full-time ministry for 16 years, both pastoring and leading a house of prayer ministry that disciples others in lifestyles of deep prayer. His life passion is to know the depths of God's heart and disciple others to do the same. Jeff is the author of Going Deeper, 40-week discipleship guide to encountering Jesus, which inspires and equips believers to encounter Jesus through a practical step-by-step journey. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Well, and now you mentioned a significant spiritual experience. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was 20 years old. I was in college. I'd gone through a hard season. I'd just given my life to Jesus maybe a year prior, and I was living in sin. And through that sin and through my choices, I was living in darkness and brokenness. And it came to a head when I was 20 years old, and just a lot of things got taken away from my life. And so I'm left in this place of not knowing Jesus, but I give my life to him, maybe a year prior. And now just things are stripped away from my life. And so I went into like a deep swirl of like depression, tormenting thoughts. And so what my condition was I was living with tormenting thoughts and trying to escape through sleep and pretty much just sleep. If I can sleep and not think, that would be awesome. And so that was my emotional, mental state at the time. And in that process, I had some friends and family guiding me and pointing me back to Jesus. And so I found a Bible that I had that I never really read, honestly. And I was like, I got to turn to Jesus in this process. I don't know how to do that. I don't know what to do, but I'm starting with the Bible, and I'm going to figure out how to do this prayer conversation thing. So I'm 20. I don't know anything about God, even though I grew up in the church, and I don't know what to do. And I just give 1 or 2 hours a morning, like reading the Bible and trying to figure out this conversation thing, because at the very least, I'm escaping the thoughts and the emotions that I'm being tormented with. And so I do that for about a month, each morning, and I'm doing my best, and I don't fully know what I'm doing. But about 30 days into that process, I'm directed to read a chapter from my men's devotional that I'm reading. And I go to this verse that the devotional suggests, and I'm reading it. Again, I have no clue what it is. It's like Ezekiel somewhere. And I'm reading it, and out of nowhere, it's like the Bible verse became alive to me. And it's like God was not out loud talking, but the Bible verse was alive. And it's like God was whispering or communicating the truth of that verse to my heart in a way that was indescribable. And as soon as I looked at the verse and I felt God whispering the truth of that verse to me, and some thoughts were coming to my mind, which I never had happen before, my emotions began to be unlocked, and I began to feel God was close to me, like he was right there with me. And probably for the next 30 to 45 minutes, I was just weeping as this Bible verse was just speaking to me. And it felt like God was freeing me and delivering me from the month-long torment and depression. And I got out of that 30 to 45 minutes of just intense emotions, and I felt joy, I felt peace, and I felt like the torment and depression actually lifted off of me. And so I always say, because I wrote this down in my Bible, today is the first day of my new life. And I don't know what happened, like inside or around me, spiritually speaking, but I know that was, it wasn't the day I gave my life to God, but it sure felt like it. It was so freeing. And it was just a Bible verse speaking to me in a powerful way, as God ministered to me. And it really was like my countenance changed. My friends commented how different I was. And I look back at that as like a marking moment for me of actually experiencing intimacy with God, just reading the Bible. And so I always draw on that testimony and encourage people with that, because there's freedom that I experienced. There was me not knowing what to do, but God met me there. And then I got a vision for intimacy with him just through that one moment. I was like, I want to experience that as often as I can. And I really am enjoying the fruit of that intimacy with him.
I love that. And I love how you said, I didn't even know what I was doing, because I think sometimes a lot of people get hung up on that. like, well, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to hear God. I don't know how to pray right. And I love how he said, God just meets you where you're at.
Yeah.
If you take that step, he says, draw near to me and I'll draw near to you. Just if we can just have enough faith that he will meet us right where we're at, then that's enough.
That's right.
And you did that. You kept at it. You were consistent. You pursued, and you kept, coming to the Lord in prayer and in Bible reading. And I think a lot of us who have been, following the Lord have had that experience that you've had with that Bible verse just popping off the page with life. And it's pretty amazing because it doesn't matter how many times I've read through the Bible, it still happens. It still happens all these years.
Yeah.
For me, I've been following God my whole life. And it still happens that he'll pop that verse right off. It'll breathe life and freedom and healing. And it's incredible. And I love how you said that freedom that God brought you into. I said, it was for freedom that Christ set us free.
That's right.
That was the whole reason. He wanted us to be free. And that freedom is found, as you said, in the intimacy with the Lord. I love it. Now you have some resources for prayer. Can you tell us more about your journey with prayer? Prayer is so close to my heart. I love prayer on this podcast. In a couple months, I'm going to be doing a whole teaching on prayer. So I would love to hear your thoughts and your journey with prayer with the Lord.
Sure. So my journey kind of started there. I was 20. Now I'm 40. So it's been 20 years. Lots of ups and downs, but I've been on a journey with that process. And so that experience gave me some vision and some freedom. And so for the rest of my 20s, I just began a journey of like being in the Bible more and having more time, spending more time with God. And so I just began like saying no to good options in my life, whether it was a lot of casual hangouts or like not bad things. I just was saying no to things that occupied my time that weren't as directly connecting to Jesus. And I just gave more time to the Bible and prayer. That was led not only by desire, but I got this vision of friendship with him. And so I just began giving a little bit more time to him. And I realized that hunger and desire were taking over in me. And it was changing my lifestyle, it was changing my friendships. And so I found that the more time I gave to God, even if that looked different than other people that were my Christian friends, I was like, I just need more time with them. Some friends loved that, some people didn't. And so I did that, and I found that as I did that, my heart became more tender, and my desire for God increased, and I got more freedom in my life. I was like, man, I just want to like read the Bible and pray. Like I'm actually enjoying it. And I found that a lot of people in my life weren't at that place, but they were Christians, and they didn't understand that I was actually enjoying God in the Bible and in prayer. And so for the rest of my 20s, I ended up going to Bible school, this amazing Bible school in Kansas City, where they literally pray 24/7 hours a day. They pray 24 hours a day in this room, and they have worship going on. And so I got to spend a few hours a day in this prayer room in Kansas City. And that was an amazing journey of like really spending time in meditation and Bible study and lots of time in worship. And my experience of friendship with God grew even more in my Bible school days. And then now we get into my 30s, and now I'm 40, and I lead a prayer ministry and lead a church. And we have a prayer room. It's open most days of the week, and we disciple people in prayer. And I'm just finding that in the journey that it's the preciousness of time spent with God goes a long way. I think it's James says that God is not mocked. What we sow, we reap. And so the time we give to God, even if we don't know what to do, or if we're just struggling with different things, the time that we give to him, we do reap the benefits in our emotions and in our thoughts. And it's not an earning mentality. It's just the being with him, you grow in friendship. We've never met, but if we spend time together, we grow in friendship. And with our family and friends, we spend time with them to grow in friendship. It's the same with God. And so the time amount is my main encouragement to people is practically, can you schedule every day time with God? And this might sound crazy to some people, but I just say more than 15 minutes. Maybe it's 30 minutes, maybe it's an hour. And maybe some days you can do longer, but more than 15 minutes will go a long way. And if you can schedule that and make that sacred in your daily schedule, that's where the growth is going to happen. And then the two other things I found that have been life-changing in my prayer journey, and I've been teaching people for almost 20 years in prayer in one-on-one context primarily, is if they schedule prayer time, and then the two practical things are when they're reading the Bible, or if I'm reading the Bible, is to pause at different times and actually say the words of the Bible back to Jesus in prayer. And if you want to be really crazy, sing the Bible verses back to Jesus. And I found that takes, sometimes boring Bible reading or kind of disengaging. It turns it into a conversation with a real person on the other side of that Bible. And when I stop and I whisper, Jesus, you are the way, the truth, and the life. When I do that, sometimes I feel God's presence and sometimes I don't, but it engages my heart. And in that moment of conversation, I feel like it's a real person. And that's when it changes for me. I think there's power in speaking the Bible, not just out loud, but back to God in conversation that makes a relationship and not religion. But I do feel like there's a tenderness in those moments of talking to him about the Bible. And then I feel like as I do that, I get more clear thoughts. As I say, God, you are the way, the truth, and the life. Some clear thoughts come to me about that verse. And then I say those thoughts back to God. And so number one, schedule. Number two is say the Bible verse back to God. Pause and read the story. Say some of the ideas of the verses back to God. And if that's it, that's amazing. But if someone's willing to sing the Bible verses back to God, without caring who's around or how they sound, it's like double the impact of speaking it. So I would say, Jesus, you're the way, the truth, and the life. It's John 10 or John 14. But if I sing it, Jesus, you're the way, you're the truth, you're the life. There's just something powerful about singing. And I think it's Colossians 3, maybe 16, and then Ephesians 5, 18 through 19. It talks about singing psalms to one another or singing the Bible. And so there's a powerful thing that happens in us when we sing out loud truths back to God. And then the last thing I would say is actually picturing Jesus in front of you, or picturing God the Father in front of you when you are talking to him. And so some people do that. They picture Jesus across, on a chair next to them. I've had friends do that, and I've read stories of that in books. I close my eyes and I picture Jesus on his throne in heaven, and I have a real conversation with him, using the imagination that God's given me. So I close my eyes, I picture him in his face, and it says in Revelation 1, he has eyes of fire, and his face is shining like the sun. And I picture that, I focus on that, and I say and I sing the Bible verses back to him. And then I unpause, I read the Bible, and then I stop at different times and I do that whole process again. And just those simple steps, I found for myself and other people, is the place of connecting to God in intimacy. And that's an experience begins to increase on the inside. And that's when it goes from boring religious, duty to, oh my goodness, I'm talking to a person and he's listening. And in that process, the verse begins to move on us, and the Holy Spirit is doing stuff to our heart. So those are the basic practicals in the journey of prayer that I found the past 20 years that impact me. And as I've created resources or taught people, it's like, man, landing on these practicals is a deep part of the journey.
Yeah, I love all of that, and I've done all of that and found it to be very powerful in my own journey. Learning to pray through the scriptures, praying God's word back to him. It's like it weaves it into who you are more so than just reading. I mean, I'm a big person of digging in and studying too.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit of a nerd that way. but the studying, it'll increase knowledge, but there's nothing like that revelation that it literally becomes a part of who you are.
That's
And
right.
that praying those words back to the Lord is powerful. And I never really thought about singing the Bible verses themselves back to God, but I'm a songwriter too. And oftentimes he'll take a scripture and he'll create a whole song springboarding off of that scripture. And it's interesting that you mentioned that one in Revelation about the fire in his eyes. That was the last song I wrote, was about his eyes are burning, burning, burning. They're always burning. And then it's burning in my heart, and everywhere I go, it's burning, burning, burning. That was the last song that I wrote. So that's kind of interesting that you mentioned
Wow, that's powerful.
in particular. Um, but yeah, and you mentioned meditation also. I always see those as two different styles of prayer. The verbal prayers where I'm using my words to engage with the Lord, and then the meditation prayer where it's almost like, in my experience, it's like heightening my awareness and my fellowship with the Spirit of the Lord.
Yeah.
I don't know if you found that to be true as well.
Absolutely.
But I love both. And then of course there's intercession, where you dig into, requests or declaring the purposes or the plans of the Lord for a particular person or season. I operate in the prophetic as well. So, hearing what God is doing in a ministry or in a person's life and then declaring it over them, I see that as also a powerful way of interceding and bringing the plans of the Lord to fruition.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Like-hearted.
Yes. Now you mentioned Kansas City. Does that happen to be the International House of Prayer? Okay. Yeah. I followed that ministry a bit over the years. And great ministry. I love that you had a great experience with that, and you brought that to where you are now and started a House of Prayer ministry. There's a few House of Prayer ministries where I'm at too that I've kind of popped in and out of as well, and I love them. I love the whole philosophy of that Tabernacle of David, that 24-hour prayer and worship, and the blessing that comes through that. But yeah. So you have some resources available. Can you tell us more about your book and your website? Here, let me get your website up here.
Yep.
prayerdiscipleship.com. And can you tell us what we can expect to find there and where we can find your book?
Absolutely. So I actually got my book right here. It's pretty big. It's called Going Deeper. And it's a workbook that takes people on a 40-week journey if they go at pace. And so we use it at our church for one-on-one discipleship, and we'll go through 40 weeks on this journey through the book. And basically what it is, it's chapter per week of teaching someone, no matter where they're at, it could be brand new to prayer or they could be deep and experienced in it. It takes them through some of the practical ways of engaging with God in prayer, from scheduling to having a right mindset or perspective of God's love, Bible meditation, praying in the Spirit, Bible study, how to gaze or behold on God on His throne, fasting, and there's a section on deliverance too. How do I walk in freedom through prayer and deliverance prayer and things like that? And so on the website, people will find the book. They'll also find a video course that goes with the workbook if someone wants the videos as well. We have an ebook option, and then we're gradually updating our blog resources just to be free options as well. But the main focus of the book is to inspire and equip people to encounter Jesus in prayer. And that's my passion for 20 years. So we brought it down into a workbook with comprehensive content and super practical prayer assignments that somebody can apply Monday through Friday in their prayer life. And it's just one chapter per week, but then actually fleshing it out is where I found the power is. Okay, there's a chapter on meditation. We've actually got 8, but there's one in meditation. Now let me apply that one idea this week in my actual meditation times. Because I'm sure you found it too, is like we can read a good prayer book and then never actually pray, and which isn't the point. And so the workbook gives someone some clarity on what to do in interacting with God in meditation, study, praying in tongues, things like that, from my experience. And it helps them apply the content in their week. And if they want to have someone walk them through the content, like discipleship or a friend, they can have that mutual strengthening and accountability. And so, yeah, that's what the resource is all about. We published it about a year ago. We've got some churches using it as a discipleship curriculum. They'll take a group through the content, or we have married couples using it together. We have people reading individually. Just had a lady that was 80, and she read the entire thing in 40 days instead of 40 weeks. And she just went after it and was blessed by it. So that's what prayerdiscipleship.com is all about. The video option, the book option, the ebook option.
I love it. And I love that you bring that practical side to it, because I think a lot of people, like I said in the beginning, they feel lost and like, I don't know where to start, and how to actually apply this. And then we almost kind of, I find that people get stuck in those, I call them flash prayers. It's like,
Yeah.
hey God, it's more of an emotional reaction
Yeah.
than actual pursuing growth and transformation. So
Yeah.
I love it. I love your
Yeah.
ministry. I love what you're doing.
Thank you.
Check him out at prayerdiscipleship.com. Get his book, Have Your Life Be Changed and Transformed. And I'm going to sign off here. Don't forget to swipe, tap, or click over to deborahhenne.com. Follow me on social, on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook at Deborah Henne Author. And let's not forget to tune into our thoughts to make sure they sound like Jesus's, so they sound like freedom.